Have you ever wondered why Trump, despite everything, hasn't been taken down by the endless criticisms and mockery he faces? Why has he survived this long? Why, in fact, hasn't he already been defeated by now? This might sound strange to younger people, but let's take a step back and think. If you look at history, back when I was a kid, if you were running for president and something as serious as being shot happened to you, the election would have been over right then and there. That was it. The candidate would have no chance. But somehow, in the chaos that has followed, Trump keeps bouncing back. It's almost as if there's something invincible about him, or at least that's how it seems to some. Now, let's get into the realm of comedy for a second. Picture this, a real estate agent who speaks through her nose, struggling to make a simple point. You can't help but think, what is going on here? It's like they overlap in this confusing, conflicting way, making it almost impossible to form a decision. Everything just seems so tangled. It's the kind of situation where you can't say anything right, and the person in question becomes someone you're forced to accept as the man or the king of that world. The question arises, how did Trump survive? Bill Burr, a comedian known for his harsh, no-holds-barred style, may have cracked the answer. With all of Trump's jarring movements and odd behaviors, you have to wonder if it's all part of his strategy. It's almost like watching a grumpy Trump being roasted like a Thanksgiving turkey. And folks, Bill Burr just cranked up the heat and served Trump extra crispy on live TV. His performance didn't just roast Trump. It exposed a side of him that was, frankly, hard to ignore. Bill Burr isn't your typical comedian, known for delivering his jokes with precision and brutal honesty. He walked on stage like he owned the place. The audience was on edge, wondering if this would be a disaster or a comedic moment for the ages. What they got was a bit of both, a mix of tension, ridicule, and of course, the unavoidable meltdown of someone who prides himself on never being questioned or challenged. But let's pause for a moment and consider this. What was it about Burr's roast that hit so hard? Imagine this, Burr looking at Trump's infamous hair and immediately comparing it to a dead squirrel glued to a balloon. That's the kind of imagery that can set a room on fire. People laughed, sure, but it wasn't just about the ridiculousness of Trump's appearance. Burr went straight for the ego Trump's supposed business genius. He pointed out how Trump, despite his claims of being the master of deals, could somehow bankrupt a money printing machine. That joke cuts deep for someone who constantly brags about being a very stable genius. Such a remark stings harder than you might think. Burr didn't stop there. He kept pushing, relentlessly poking at Trump's insecurities. He made the crowd imagine Trump standing in front of a mirror, asking, "Who's the fairest of them all?" That image, Trump in his golden tower, fishing for compliments from his own reflection, is both hilarious and somehow terrifying because, let's be honest, it seems plausible. But then came the real kicker. Burr's most cutting remark came when he referred to Trump as a toddler with nuclear codes. He suggested that Trump needed a timeout, not in the Oval Office, but as a child would. The crowd went wild. It was like witnessing an eruption, a comedic explosion, and Trump's fragile ego became ground zero. The audacity, the perfect timing, the delivery, it was like David versus Goliath, except in this case, David was a foul-mouthed Bostonian armed with sharp wit, and Goliath was an orange balloon animal with a dangerously inflated ego. And how did Trump handle it? Well, let's just say, not exactly in the way you'd expect from a seasoned politician. If you thought he would simply laugh it off, think again. Trump's reaction was anything but graceful. Instead of brushing it off like a mature adult, he did what Trump does best: he let his temper take over. Watching him lash out was like watching a schoolyard bully throw a tantrum because someone finally stood up to him. It was as if all of Trump's bravado crumbled the moment someone held a mirror up to his insecurities. But let's be clear, Burr didn't just roast Trump for the sake of it. It wasn't about laughs at all costs. No, Burr used humor as a tool to speak truth to power Trump. This larger-than-life figure with an ego the size of his failed casinos was brought down a few pegs by nothing more than words. It was a reminder that sometimes laughter can be a weapon sharp enough to deflate even the most pompous of figures. Burr's roast wasn't just funny. It was a reminder of the power of comedy. It showed us that, even when confronted with such a seemingly untouchable figure, words could still have a profound effect. And then, of course, there's Trump's reaction. While we could all see that the roast hit hard, there's something else happening beneath the surface. Burr's humor was different from other comedians' jabs at Trump. Most jokes about Trump are easy targets: his hair, his spray tan, his hands. But Burr, he went for the core of what makes Trump tick: his insecurities, his incompetence, and his childishness. And when you mix those observations with humor, it becomes something much more potent than simple mockery. It's like hitting Trump where it really hurts, and Burr did it with a slight grin, leaving everyone in the audience thinking, yeah, we all know it's true. Now, you may wonder why Trump's reaction to comedy is so extreme. After all, the man's been the target of jokes for years. He's been roasted time and time again. So why does Bill Burr's joke sting so much more? Well, picture this: Trump, probably lounging in his golden tower, watching TV instead of reading his briefings, gets wind of Burr's roast. What does he do? Does he ignore it like a mature adult? Of course not. Trump, being Trump, grabs his phone and gets ready to unleash a tweet storm that could rival a hurricane. And boy, did he deliver. He started tweeting about how Burr was a failing comedian, someone who couldn't sell out a phone booth. Seriously, a phone booth? It was a joke that felt like it was stuck in the 80s. It was as if Trump was trying to show he still had some relevance in a world that had moved on from him. But wait, this wasn't the end of it. His Twitter rampage escalated. He misspelled comedian 4 times, insulted 3 world leaders, and essentially made a fool of himself. Watching Trump melt down was like watching a toddler throwing a tantrum in a china shop. Only this toddler had nuclear codes. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Trump's inability to take a joke is perhaps the key to understanding his entire presidency. He's so fragile, so easily rattled, that it's no surprise he couldn't handle a roast from Bill Burr. Most comedians target the obvious: Trump's appearance, his mannerisms, his flaws. But Burr went deeper, using comedy to expose Trump's deepest insecurities. And that, my friends, is what really struck a nerve. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite Trump's fierce reaction, there's a part of him that secretly admires comedians and their power. Did you know that he once hosted Saturday Night Live? It's true. The same man who rails against comedians and their jokes once shared the stage with them. It's almost like finding out Darth Vader used to do stand-up comedy. The truth is, Trump's love-hate relationship with jokes might just be his biggest weakness. He wants to be in control, to be the one calling the shots. But when someone takes him down with a few well-placed jabs, it drives him crazy. And that's what makes him so dangerous, but also so easy to mock. Because, deep down, we all know the truth. And Burr, well, he just had the guts to say it out loud.